Welcome to Nasdaq Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, global markets reporter at Nasdaq. Joining us for our 2022 Outlook series, we have Byron Loflin. He's the global head of board engagement at Nasdaq. Byron, it's great to see you again. Welcome back to Trade Talks.
Jill, great to see you. Thank you.
You got it. And looking back at 2021, what is the biggest shift you observed in boardrooms globally?
Board diversity is changing dramatically. It's really driving better thought in the boardroom and higher level of interaction.
And what do you think the future of the boardroom will look like, and how will technology play a role?
Well, that's a great question. I think that technology is already playing an active role through that more diverse thinking. The deeper line of questioning is elevating the board's engagement around, and traditionally the duty of care has always been important. That's been elevated. And I think through that, matters like purpose and values and ESG are elevating. And so they're using technology both as a means through things like a portal or through reporting tools. They're using technology as dashboards to understand where the governance world is headed.
And looking ahead to 2022, can you share a few corporate governance themes that you expect to be in focus for boards?
Sure. I'll go through them quickly because these are active in the boardroom presently. What's happening around talent is very important because I think the term great resignation is a misnomer. I think there's something else going on, as many of the board members I'm speaking with and CEO, when I speak about board members, I mean CEOs also. The war for talent is fully global today. And the idea of attracting the best talent also means having a place where people work and they feel like they're inspired to innovate and engage. That's causing a change in the governance environment. Purpose, values, what a company puts forward as it wants to do as it's selling its products and services is more and more important particularly to the younger worker. So this whole idea of a more stakeholder-oriented capitalism is elevating. Things like a board member I was speaking with the other day, he emphasized, I asked him, what do you think is one of the great challenges for boards in the future? And one of the things he brought up is income inequality. And I think that's something that's become more important among talent and in the boardroom. Along with that is succession planning, data privacy and security, and not the least of which, I have a close friend, Peter Georgescu, who emphasizes we need to have a competent and better form of capitalism. And I think I'm seeing boards really wrestle with that today.
That's interesting. More specifically, what are some of the focus areas for you and the Nasdaq board engagement team?
Thank you. We're highly focused on delivering great products and services. When Nasdaq brought us in as a governance team several years ago, we found that this is an exciting place to work with both our existing listed companies, prospective IPOs, and those going through the IPO process to work together with these issues of board effectiveness, bringing new board members on as companies IPO. There's a lot of turnover in the boardroom, so we're working through the board assessment and skills gap assessment process with board members and boards to bring more, as they're changing the boardroom, because this is all driven, governance is driven by boards. So the ESG piece, the governance is naturally the board's responsibility. And under that umbrella of governance, you've got the E and the S, which are increasingly important to boards. So they're wanting where there's an interactivity occurring today that's both interesting and exciting between ourselves and boards, utilizing our technology like OneReport or our board portal like Board Vantage, our corporate governance tools like the D&O questionnaire and the board evaluation to really help boards on their governance excellence journey.
And how do your team's efforts align with progress being made on the ESG front?
Well, that's an exciting place that we're working actively. There's several groups of us working together. It's the board advisory team, the One Report team, and the board engagement team that I lead. And we're working to wrestle with the particularly three areas. You know, when you look at purpose and values, you look down the S, people care today deeply, and board members care. I'm seeing a dramatic change in board composition, therefore diversity today. So working with boards to identify what do we need in the boardroom that's different. You know, one interesting point that's happened that's a dramatic change, and I think we're helping here, is that I in several board evaluations, but one particularly, the name of the CHRO, the actual person's name, came up with almost every board member as how that person, the human resources chief in this large bank, is elevating the discussion in the boardroom because that person's bringing good data for them to discuss. Well, that's clearly to the S piece of it. And talent today, they expect us to care about the planet and to care more about what's happening in the environment with water quality, air quality, soil conservation, and soil quality. These are things that it may not be, every piece may not be relevant for every single board member, but you want to have a good working knowledge of it. And that's where I feel like we're bringing a lot to bear here at Nasdaq to provide good products and services and in-depth understanding of not only where we've come from, but where we're headed in this ESG world.
And Byron, if you don't mind me asking another question, you had mentioned that we are seeing a lot of board turnover. Is that because they're looking to have a more holistic composition where it's not necessarily just expertise for the specific product or service that the company delivers, but there is a working knowledge of ESG and perhaps more, the human resource side of it?
Yeah, they're both adding to the number of board members. So say a board was 6, they're going to 7 or 8. And some of the turnover that's happening currently, just by virtue of age and life cycle of business, you know, there's not a lot of board members getting, for example, I don't really know hardly any that are getting kicked out. It's more that some board members are saying, you know, I'm at a certain age now, I'm going to step down and let younger people step in. That's one. Another is we're going to add board members. So that's the 6 to 8 equation. But importantly, regardless of how that's occurring, the diversity in the boardroom. I had one board chair, I thought this was one of the most meaningful. He said, you know, Byron, I feel like we're freeing up the bondage of bias in the boardroom. And frankly, this was a older gentleman that looks a lot like me. And he said, we had 2 diverse women come on the board. It was like opening the windows, letting fresh air in, and the elevation of interaction has been exciting. I look more forward to coming to boardrooms. So the message I would project is working with lots of boards and different places around the world. Nearly all of them are saying, this is exciting stuff. We're entering into this exciting era of governance in which we're seeing business take up a significant position in carrying the economy forward and also bringing about some social change that we need in our world. And it doesn't need to be encumbering or restricting of business growth globally.
Yeah, interesting. Byron, great to catch up with you as always. Thanks for joining us on Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq.
Thank you, Jill. Happy holidays. It's always great to be with you. I appreciate the work you do.